Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss ARI's recent decision to invite Jordan Peterson to OCON to participate on a panel at OCON. OCON is the big yearly Objectivist Conference. There has been some backlash against this decision, and so I'm going to watch a clip of Yaron Brook, chairman of the board of directors of ARI, who are responsible for this decision, and Amy Peikoff defending the decision, and I am going to comment on it, and through that, obviously, reveal my position on this decision.
Yep. Wait, what was the other topic? Oh, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson, yeah. So let me tell you a question that I saw on Twitter, because
Jordan Peterson invited to an Objectivist conference. Officially, the movement now rests in peace.
And the comment that I saw was similar. It was somebody who was saying that he had been a 30-year supporter of ARI and was considering now discontinuing that. And I asked why, and this person said, because, or it was just answering in terms of a question, actually. Why not also invite the Pope? And make it MoCon because it's mystical Objectivist conference.
Yeah, so first of all, we're not going to invite the Pope because the Pope is evil. You can't be a Pope without being evil. I think Jordan Peterson, while wrong on almost everything, and Amy has documented all the things that he's been wrong, at least in the book. There are plenty of other things he's wrong outside of the book.
Just the one book. I haven't done Maps of Meaning.
One book. Yeah. He's wrong. But I think he is still honest, or at least he doesn't represent evil to the extent that I will not get up on stage with him.
Well, I would like to know what that standard is. I believe Jordan Peterson is fundamentally dishonest. He is, if anything, or I should say, there is at least one sense in which he is more evil than the Pope. Jordan Peterson he is the one who was foretold. This is what the dim hypothesis is predicting. Jordan Peterson is a greater vindication of the dim hypothesis than anything I thought would come along ever, and certainly not this soon. I always thought the flavor would be something more like Richard Spencer, and it remains to be seen that it may still be the case that the fascism, that we move towards fascism rather than theocracy, and religion, and Christianity in particular, plays merely a supporting role as it did in Nazi Germany. I still think that's likely the case, but it is unexpected to me that somebody who emphasizes Christianity so much, the religious element so much, is the vanguard of our destruction. So these are two people who claim to admire, revere Leonard Peikoff, and yet when his prediction is coming true in front of their eyes, they don't recognize it and are perfectly willing to invite the Antichrist, or rather the pro-Christ, into their midst, into their big marquee yearly event. But in terms of whether Jordan Peterson is evil, yes, clearly. In terms of destructiveness, I mean, you can ask this: who's more evil, Kant or some mindless Eastern mystic? Well, Kant, in the sense that he destroyed more. Now, he had to use his mind more to invent such a brilliant evil system. So in that sense, you could say it's less evil because he's actually doing intellectual work. I mean, there are virtues involved with it that a mindless mystic just never even uses, but he's using his intellect to destroy all intellect. So by that standard, Jordan Peterson is much, much more evil than the Pope. Now, I believe all religious leaders are evil. You know, it's like being a a leftist economist versus maybe believing some stupid leftist economic fallacies as a normal person. Maybe you can do that honestly. You can believe in the minimum wage honestly, maybe. Although I'm skeptical. You would have to, I mean, it's hard for me to believe somebody who believed in the minimum wage was just certain that it was good is an honest person. That doesn't seem possible to me. You have to think maybe one more step to at least start thinking, well, would this actually work? What would the results of this be? So, but anyway, let's just say in principle there are bad economic ideas you can believe and still be honest. But if you're an economist, if you're Paul Krugman, and you believe these things, no, you are not honest. This is your job. This is what you think about and do full time. Same thing with religious leaders. Maybe you can believe, oh, maybe there's a God, whatever. If you're a normal person, maybe you can be honest. You cannot be the Pope and be honest, or a priest. But the Pope, nobody takes the Pope seriously. The Pope is not an intellectual. He's never going to convince anybody to be religious. Jordan Peterson is convincing people to be religious. He is opening the door to the Dark Ages. He is legitimizing religion intellectually. And that is the single most destructive phenomenon that is currently occurring. All of these skeptics and classical liberals who have no foundation but who aren't social justice nihilists, they need some positive alternative. And Jordan Peterson is coming along and saying, this is the way to go. Let's go back to looking at how the leaves fall off of trees in order to figure out what the future is going to be. Let's go back to utter terror and ignorance and poverty. That is where Jordan Peterson is taking us. That is far, the Pope could never accomplish that. Now you can say, well, sure, people can believe things that will lead to horrible consequences without themselves realizing that or being evil. That's true, but Jordan Peterson is essentially wrong on every issue. This is not somebody who's just, oh yeah, he believes some things that ultimately, consistently would result in these bad things. He is, if you hear some of the things Jordan Peterson says, he is despicable. I do not believe you can be anything but evil and claim some of the things. You just listen to how he talks about marriage. What's marriage to him? Marriage is chaining yourself to somebody else so you can't run away. Because the whole point of marriage for him is to have somebody who can criticize you, that you can't just shut off, that you can't ignore. And that's what marriage is supposed to do. That's supposed to be the whole stigma behind divorce. So you get the religious idea here. It's you just have to be forced into this situation. Just grin and bear it. I mean, there's so many things that are evil about this. One, your happiness doesn't matter. You just put yourself in this position and just endure stoically as an end in itself. This is a theme throughout all religious ethics because they're intrinsicists, and you will see it all over the place in Jordan Peterson. But also this idea, you might, any honest person would ask, okay, but if it makes sense for me to improve myself, why wouldn't I just listen to criticisms? Why do I have to chain myself to somebody? Oh, well, people are stupid. This is the anti-intellectualism of Jordan Peterson, the philosopher king element of him. People are stupid. They have to be forced into doing things for their own good. You can read parts of his books and you will see some. If you think he is a defender of freedom or capitalism, you have not paid enough attention to Jordan Peterson. He is just waiting to unleash his totalitarianism. So no, I think if you listen to Jordan Peterson, you will find that he is actually evil, concretely. And I mean, that can be the dividing line. You know, maybe you believe some abstract things and you don't really understand the consequences. Jordan Peterson understands too many of the consequences for him to be anything but evil. He's also incredibly stupid. Well, I'll get into that later.
Now, he hasn't been invited to OCON to present his ideas to the OCON audience. He's been invited to OCON to provide a forum in which his ideas can be challenged in front, not just of the OCON audience, which is going to be hostile to him, but in front of all of his audience.
Some of the OCON audience will be sympathetic to him, I think. Some.
Yeah, some will. All of those who listen to Yaron Brook and Amy Peikoff. Those will be the ones most likely to be sympathetic to Jordan Peterson.
No, I don't. Somebody asked if I think that his characterization as a Nazi philosopher is true. No, I don't think that.
I do think it's true. This is a reference to Harry Binswanger's characterization of Jordan Peterson. Recently, Harry Binswanger did a whole show on Jordan Peterson and what he thinks of him, and he came straight out of the gate saying that Jordan Peterson is, without qualification, a Nazi fascist philosopher. Now, I agree in essence. Well, first let me say, I have more familiarity with Jordan Peterson than Yaron Brook, Amy Peikoff, and Harry Binswanger combined, as far as I can tell. I've heard them all discuss their knowledge of him, and from what they say, they've all at least implied that they haven't seen as much of his material as I have, nowhere close to the 100+ hours I've watched and listened to. So, anyway, I think Harry Binswanger is not, either he is not aware of, or I think discounts too much Jordan Peterson's emphasis on individualism. Now, Jordan Peterson is fundamentally a collectivist and a determinist, but whereas with free will, he kind of just gives it lip service because he's a mystic. With individualism, he emphasizes that far too much for it to just be appeasement, lip service. So I think Jordan Peterson is more eclectic than a Nazi philosopher would be, but in essence, he is a biological determinist and mystic, and that's exactly what, and he advocates will over reason, supernaturalism, collectivism. He is, in essence, definitely a Nazi. But he does emphasize individualism way more than any Nazi ever would. And I'm not sure Harry Binswanger recognizes that. But of the characterizations of Jordan Peterson I have seen, Harry Binswanger's is the best, which is exactly what I would expect, because Harry Binswanger is, well, he's the only active intellectual I respect. You know, it's funny, something Jordan Peterson and religious people all the time say is this idea that, oh, you claim to be atheists, but really you have the same Judeo-Christian values I do because you grew up in this culture. So you can claim your values aren't based on Christianity, but really they are. Now, for a lot of atheists, that's true. Where did Sam Harris get altruism? Is that a product of his of atheism? That came from religion. That came from Christianity. For him, that's why Sam Harris is an altruist. So, in that sense, religious people are actually right when they criticize atheists for accepting unwittingly Christian ethics. They do. But it's funny because in this case, it's true in the reverse. Jordan Peterson is spewing all of these collectivist, supernaturalist, mystical ideas, and yet he jams in there individualism and, to a lesser extent, free will. Why? Why is he jamming in these contradictory elements? It's because he grew up in a culture that was the product of the Enlightenment. Jordan Peterson would never have gotten individualism from Christianity. Christianity would never have gotten individualism from Christianity. Now, historically, yes, Christianity was the mechanism that spread individualism. But you would never get that from Christianity. That is not a product of Christianity itself. Just like everything rational that's ever come out of religious people, that was not a product of the religion. That was a product of better elements being mixed with religion. And that has always been the influence of the ancient Greeks. In any case, this is just a funny inversion because Jordan Peterson so often accuses atheists of, oh, you think you're against Christianity, but really you accept our ethics. Well, Jordan Peterson is doing the same thing. He has all of these values that are derivative of religion, but he mashes in these values that don't come out of religion, but that he still seems like he has to make a place for them. Why? Well, because that's the culture he grew up in. That's the only reason he has any respect for individualism, free will, at all. If he grew up in a truly religious society, do you think he would have figured out? Do you think he would have the same ideas? Do you think individualism would be so important to him because that's really in Christianity? No.
I don't consider him anywhere near that bad. Although I think he's bad. Let's be clear. I disagree with Jordan Peterson on every fundamental philosophical issue. And a lot of those things will come out at OCON, a lot of those disagreements. But the beauty of it is he has 1.2 million followers on. He is open to having a civilized discussion about these ideas. Actually, today and tomorrow, he is debating Sam Harris in Vancouver about many of their disagreements, which I'm sure will be a good debate because they'll be debating truth and they'll be debating religion and they'll be debating about a number of different things where they disagree. Having debates with people you disagree with, it's okay for me to go to university and debate some crazy leftist or crazy right-wing guy about inequality or about anything because it's a university, but at our place, oh no, everybody who goes on stage has to be pure. No, I mean we can invite.
You can say something in a sarcastic voice, but that's not really an argument. Yeah, that's exactly my stance. A university is a neutral ground. You can go there and you can talk to people or debate people, and that is entirely different from inviting to your big yearly event your mortal enemy, presumably your mortal enemy if you take objectivism seriously. That is an entirely different thing. If Yaron goes to some university and he talks with Jordan Peterson, okay. Even if he invites him on his podcast, okay, how many hours a week does Yaron Brook do? Many. But that's more like talking to him in person. That's something there's no implication there. To invite him as a panelist, not even to a debate, but to do a panel, have a discussion to your one big yearly thing, that is entirely different from going and talking to him at some other place. The whole point of OCON is here is a place once a year where you can get together with other people who are on the same page. You know what? The rest of the culture is debating over whether arithmetic is valid. Here's a place where you can come and everybody will be on the same page, recognizing that calculus is where we start and we go from there. That's the value. This is actually how they promote OCON. Oh, they always have their quotes when they send out their emails trying to encourage people. Oh, come where you can be with people who think like you. But that's not what you're doing when you invite Jordan Peterson. At the very least, I can say, if I were somebody who still had any interest in going to OCON, because I didn't realize that ARI was exactly the kind of organization that does things like invite Jordan Peterson to OCON, if I still had any interest in going to OCON, I would be very disappointed in this. OCON is the place I go where I know people are on the same page, so I don't have to start at arithmetic. And your big idea for this is, hey, let's have a panel where we debate arithmetic with one of its opponents, one of its most popular opponents, because then maybe his followers will pay attention to us. That is pathetic. I mean, this is pure appeasement. This is, hey, Jordan Peterson's really popular. Let's hopefully appease his followers by inviting him to our big thing. Then maybe they'll think, oh, objectivists see how this is us saying, we recognize how great your guy is. Please pay attention to us because we recognize how valuable Jordan Peterson is. We recognize he has good, interesting, smart things to say. Please pay attention to us. That's what this is. This is just, this is, this is exactly what I would expect. This is pure appeasement. I mean, you just abstract this to a situation less personal than this. Suppose there's a big yearly capitalist conference. Okay. Now, is it legitimate for capitalists to go out and debate socialists or communists, fascists? Fine, you can go do that. But if you have one big yearly capitalist get-together, do you think it's legitimate to invite a communist to come participate on a panel discussion at your big yearly home turf capitalist event? And to do so explicitly because, hey, this communist is really popular. Maybe this will ingratiate us to his followers. If you don't see what's wrong with that, I don't know what to say.
This has got a parallel in the immigration debate. This is a parallel in the immigration debate because I'm convinced, and I was talking with a friend about this, and he was saying that, Peterson seems to be showing a willingness to further this, if you want to call it intellectual dark web, or where people are discussing ideas and they come from a variety of different backgrounds and different sets of fundamental beliefs. He's talking with Harris now and everything. They're willing to have discussions about fundamental ideas in a community that's plural and is now in.
The intellectual dark web is one of the ways that we're doomed. These are the defenders of the Weimar Republic. This is when you have communism versus fascism, and you have people who know both are bad, but they have no idea what the hell they stand for, and they're just desperately trying to not go in either direction. They don't know how to formulate an alternative, and this is why you see the fanatical calls for centrism. This was happening here. This is all this is, the intellectual dark web. It's the if this is our intellectual Avengers. Oh, we have Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and Brett and Eric Weinstein and Dave Rubin and all these people. If this is who we are relying on to defend freedom, we are doomed. You could not have a more pathetic collection of defenders of reason and freedom.
Including objectivists, right? With these real big hitters. This is a good thing. So what happens in the end?
Let's get in with these real big hitters. It's all about, let's appeal to the mainstream. Let's appeal to the mainstream. Now I want to ask you something. Did Ayn Rand ever think like this? Did Ayn Rand ever do anything like this? Did she ever say, "Oh, I have to, who are the big philosophers who are around today? Who are the big intellectuals? I need to debate them so people will pay attention to me"? No. She just put her ideas out there. That's what she did. She didn't have to have debates with people. She didn't have to grab onto their coattails. Ayn Rand was actually against debates. She wouldn't participate in them because she said, look, today an objectivist if an objectivist gets in a debate with somebody who's presumably on the opposite side because they're having a debate, that other person the audience takes all of your opponent's premises for granted because that's what our culture is based on. You, as an objectivist, have the impossible job of having to communicate all of your premises in order to even make your point. If you're arguing about the minimum wage, whether it's legitimate, well, your opponent gets to take for granted altruism and collectivism and disintegrated thinking. All of that he gets to take for granted. You, as an objectivist, have to bring in principles and integrated thinking and all of these ideas that will be totally alien, a context that is completely alien to the audience. You have to smuggle this in somehow, or present it. That's impossible to do in a debate, and if you try, first of all, you won't have time, and you'll look like you're evading. Because people think, why aren't you answering the question? It's so simple. Just, why is the minimum wage good? And you say, well, you have to understand or why is the minimum wage bad? Well, to understand that, you have to first understand all of this stuff from the bottom, and the audience just thinks, what are you doing? So she didn't engage in debates. She thought they were useless. I agree. They are valuable only as promotional tools, and that's the only way I would ever engage in them. They're totally useless. I mean, for an objectivist in today's context, I'm not saying always, forever they're useless, but as an objectivist in a society that has premises totally against yours, there's no point. It's just going to make you look bad.
Good ideas win out. So my parallel that I'm drawing in immigration is
Wait.
as real big hitters. This is a good thing. So what happens in the end? The good ideas win out. So my parallel that I'm drawing in immigration is, in immigration, I think a lot of the fear comes out because everybody thinks, oh, all the immigrants are going to come here and they're going to vote Democrat because we can't convince them through the power of ideas that, to vote against authoritarianism, totalitarianism. Why should we be afraid? In fact, there's a lot we can learn by having an interchange with Jordan Peterson.
I mean, why not have an exchange with almost everybody? I mean, there's certain people I won't. There's certain people on the religious right I won't deal with. That are
real racists or something, right? Yeah.
And real racists I won't deal with. I won't deal with Noam Chomsky on the left.
Yeah. This is this is characteristic of Amy Peikoff. She is even worse than Yaron in terms of vapidity and appeasement. What's her go-to? Oh, racists. Oh, we can't be, now racism is evil, but why is that your go-to? Because that's the thing the culture regards as the ultimate evil. So of course we have to say, oh, we're against racists. Now, Yaron, recognizing that there's something wrong with this, says yes, racists and Noam Chomsky. He's trying to at least maintain this idea that there's a balance, although I think Yaron he also gets caught up in this idea of pandering to the mainstream of the culture, so he'll freak out, at an alt-right rally in a way he doesn't get as passionate about with, Antifa. But Amy won't even doesn't even mention them. It's like, oh well, racists. We can't talk to racists. I mean, why do you think her mind went there rather than communist? Because she is just affected by the culture. She's just like everybody else. She just calls herself an objectivist. But she's totally bought into this cultural idea. Oh yeah, Nazis are evil. Communists, yeah, they're bad and practical, but whatever. We don't have the hatred of communists. that we do for Nazis and racists, even though we should. But she's not independent enough to even realize that that's a concern. Yaron, at least, recognizes he should pay lip service to that.
But most of the people in the middle, in the middle and out into the left and right, I will exchange ideas with, I will debate. And if we can debate on this stage, why is it wrong to debate on our stage? And why is it wrong to exclude, again, for a debate, I wouldn't put Jordan Peterson up to speak and by that sanction his view, but to debate and thus say.
Well, I would just like to point out that the email I got announcing Jordan Peterson's invitation to OCON says, confirmed, Jordan Peterson to speak at OCON 2018. Now, this is not before they knew anything or anything like that, because in the text of the email it says he's going to be on a panel, so they knew he was going to be on a panel and not there giving a lecture. But that's not accidental phrasing. This is how they are promoting it. They are promoting it as, hey, Jordan Peterson's going to express his ideas. He's not going to participate on a panel. The point here is not, oh, you get to hear Yaron and Onkar, although they've changed it to Greg Salmieri now. You get to hear them dismantle what's wrong with Jordan Peterson. No. They are marketing this as, hear Jordan Peterson speak. Confirmed Jordan Peterson to speak at OCON. That's how they're marketing it. So they can say all they want. Oh yeah, it would be awful if they did that. Okay, but that's what you're counting on. That's what you want to get into people's minds. That's how you're promoting this.
Say, I disagree with you, Jordan. How can that be a bad thing for the objective?
Or not even a debate. To say, hey, discussion. You have these views, I have these views. Let's talk about where we agree, where we differ. And
again, Amy Peikoff being worse than Yaron. Yaron at least realizes, yeah, I should frame this in terms of a debate to make it clear. But Amy's like, oh, well, why not just have a discussion?
Take him at his word and say, here's a man who has been saying that one of his main, he wants to do two things. He wants to stave off totalitarianism, and he wants to help make people's lives better.
Okay, I had an ex-girlfriend who characterized Amy Peikoff as a vapid moron. Now, I have refrained from endorsing that characterization until now, but at this point it is simply impossible to do anything but agree with it. Jordan Peterson, look, one of his two things is he just wants to he just wants to help people live better lives. He just wants to improve the world. That's who's against that? What, do you think Hitler would say, no, you know what, I'm for making people's lives worse? Noam Chomsky? Stalin? Any evil person you can think of. If you are at the point where you are accepting the statement that I just want to make people's lives better as evidence that, oh, this must be a good person. If you're at that point, then I don't know. So often I can't even end my sentences because it's just, I'm speechless because I don't know. It seems like there's nothing I can say. If you don't already understand what's wrong with this, then I can't possibly explain it to you. Or rather I could, but it won't make any difference because it's so obvious. Just wants to make the world better.
And we agree on those goals, but we think that his means are all wrong.
I feel like I'm listening to a Republican. That's what this feels like. This is the kind of abject, appeasing trash you hear from Republicans. No, we don't think Democrats are evil. We know they just want to make the world a better place. We agree with their goals. We disagree with the means they want to get. No, that is 100% wrong. We do not agree with Jordan Peterson on the goal. At least I don't. And nobody whom I regard as an objectivist does. I mean, that is the kind of Republican is a synonym for appeasing coward to me. So I can't think of any better way to say it. But that is the most platitudinous Republican appeasing. That is such a trite, popular, garbage slogan. I cannot believe I am hearing this endorsed by two of the biggest public representatives of objectivism. Yeah, as that guy at the beginning said, and which Yaron laughed at, yeah, the movement is dead, so long as it's represented by ARI. If this is now how they're coming out, we agree with our enemies, we agree on the goals, we just have different means. Doesn't that just like melt your brain? Haven't you heard that in enough? Okay.
So let's have a discussion about, what are the fundamental ideas beneath those stated goals that you have?
Yeah, and I would have.
What
Sam
is your vision
Harris
of a better life as part of it too, right? His idea of a better life.
To come and have a discussion. I would put Sam Harris on stage. I would put Stephen Pinker on stage. There on the left. I would put a lot of people who I disagree with on stage to debate. I wouldn't put them on stage to present, but I would put them on stage to present and to debate. And if we discuss, then we expose our ideas. We give exposure to our ideas.
Now, it would be different. Like, suppose
hundreds of thousands of people.
Suppose you have this discussion and you and Ankar, I really want to get along with Jordan Peterson. He's so popular. He's got this big audience. And so let me pretend that objectivism is something that it isn't. So
that's exactly what you're doing by inviting him. Now, this is what I always say about ARI. They violate the spirit, but not the letter. No, I don't expect Yaron and Greg, as I say, it's now Greg Salmieri who's going to be there, not Ankar Gate. I don't expect them to violate the letter of the law with objectivism or to say anything completely wrong. But just inviting him there is a form of statement. That's a statement. Inviting him to a panel discussion, not even a debate, but to participate on a panel discussion, that sounds even more of a clear statement, which is, oh, we're not antagonists. We are allies pursuing truth, and we have something to learn from Jordan Peterson. And it's not just how he's wrong or where he goes wrong, which is what you would learn from a debate. No. Inviting him to your big yearly event for people who believe in your ideology, and to invite this person to participate on a panel, not even a debate, at your one big yearly thing, that undeniably sends a message that, oh, hey, we are trying to appease, we are trying to say that objectivism is friendly to Jordan Peterson's ideas. So please, Jordan Peterson followers, please maybe check out Ayn Rand, because, hey, she would approve of some of what he does in important ways. No.
Let me, what's her name is the head of the Atlas Society. She writes the op-ed. Oh, it's, it's compatible with religion, objectivism is compatible. If you do that, if you misrepresent our view in that discussion, that would be terrible.
Yeah, only if you say it explicitly. So again, they stick to the letter of the law. You can invite him, you can do whatever, but just don't literally say it. You can do everything but say it. Selection is as important as what you say. If there's a shoplifter and a murderer standing next to each other, and you say, that guy's a shoplifter, it doesn't matter that that's literally true. What you are implying by that is that this is more the shoplifter is more has done something worse than the murderer. Doesn't matter that it's literally true that the statement "this is a shoplifter" is true. If that's what you choose to focus on in that context, you are sending a statement.
But the premise of a discussion with anybody is not that you agree with that person about every single thing in the world. Otherwise, you could never talk to anybody all day long.
And I wouldn't.
Wow, that is despicably disingenuous. Oh, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, what she's equating is agree on 99% and disagree 100%. Oh, you don't agree with everybody 100% on everything. Therefore, it's perfectly fine to talk to somebody with whom you have nothing fundamental in common, with whom you disagree with 100% on everything important. I mean, this is not somebody whose derivatives are wrong. Jordan Peterson is a supernaturalist. He does not believe in objective reality. He does not believe in reason. He is a total mystic. He does not believe in selfishness. Yaron Brook criticized one of his videos. I did a commentary on that. This is not somebody with whom we are basically on the same page, and now we're going to go on and we can work things out because we basically agree. If you've heard that infamous podcast between Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, where Jordan Peterson is just doing everything he can to avoid the idea of objective truth. His whole thing, well, there's metaphorical truth, which is, I mean, that is... I mean, that is... Anyway, I mean, down to the... I mean, you can't actually even... It's impossible to have a productive conversation with Jordan Peterson. It's actually impossible to have a productive conversation with him because he literally doesn't believe in objective truth. Now, Sam Harris was right to stick on that point in that podcast discussion. Now, later he went back on that and they talked about other things. This is characteristic of Sam Harris. He starts out with a strong idea, like not talking to Ezra Klein, and then later he totally caves and does what he initially refused to do. But anyway, sticking to that was valuable because no, you can't have a productive conversation with somebody if you don't agree on the concept of truth. So, no, there is no way to have a productive discussion with Jordan Peterson.
And, you know, and a discussion is exactly what we need to have with the leading intellectuals in the culture. In my view, objectivism will never be successful unless we're willing to take on, engage with, debate, discuss, have a dialogue with the leading intellectuals. I have sat in a room and talked with Joseph Stiglitz, who in economics is you know, not quite a Marxist, but a leftist, disgusting, horrible person. But of course I'm going to engage with him if he is willing to engage and have the opportunity. Now, let me put it this way. The purpose of such a discussion is not to convince Jordan Peterson. There are two purposes to any discussion like this. One, to give Jordan Peterson a sense that objectivism is deeper, more important, and more substantial than what he currently believes. He thinks Ayn Rand is a third-rate philosopher. If he thought Ayn Rand was a first-rate philosopher, and at some point in the podcast, in his thing said, okay, so I used to think Ayn Rand was a social philosopher. If I had this discussion with Anka and Yaron, I still disagree with her completely, right. But I think there's more to the philosophy than I thought originally. That would be a huge win. Yep. Second, ignore Peterson. The audience, 1.2 potential, you know, or hundreds of thousands. We're probably not going to get 1.2, but hundreds of thousands of people listening who suddenly say, wow, there is something interesting here about objectivism, about this Ayn Rand stuff that everybody has told me is evil and horrible and disgusting. Let me go study that. So Well, as I said, I disagree with almost everything Jordan Peterson says when it comes to philosophy. I agree with him on some of the concretes, but when it comes to philosophy, I think the debate is so crucial to have the debate, and a movement that builds a wall around itself and refuses to debate people, but only puts other people down, only attacks other people, only ridicules other people, only offends other people, is a movement that will die.
Can't be offensive, right? Can't attack and ridicule. No, 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 no. You know, this is why I don't regard myself as being in competition with ARI or Yaron. We are literally not competing for the same audience. I'm not saying there's literally nobody interested in both of us, or that that's always illegitimate, but in principle, I believe anybody who pays attention long enough will see that we have a fundamental difference in our approach to intellectual activism, and the people who agree with Yaron's approach will disagree with mine, and the people who agree with mine will disagree with Yaron. All this emphasis on not being offensive, not attacking. You know, people who criticize me for being, oh, you're so harsh. You're turning people off of objectivism. You know, I just wish you people would be honest. Just be honest. You know, go listen to Ayn Rand's Ford Hall Forum lectures, specifically the Q&As, and then you come back to me and you tell me who is more like Ayn Rand, Yaron Brook or me. That's a rhetorical question. No one who compares and contrasts the three of us will have any doubt as to who is similar to whom. So, I wish these people would just be honest when they criticize me, and when they talk about how we need to be more respectful and nice and not just attack all the time. Look, just be honest. Just say, Ayn Rand was a detriment to spreading her own philosophy. She didn't know what she was doing. She was bad at spreading objectivism, and thank God we have ARI and Yaron around to do it for her, because Ayn Rand just couldn't do it. She didn't know what she was doing. Because that's what they're saying. But they won't ever say that about Ayn Rand. So they just attack anybody who is like Ayn Rand. Well, I'm sorry. I disagree with ARI's motto that you have to act like you have something to learn from everyone. I don't have something to learn from everyone. In fact, almost everyone, all I have is to teach. I know what's right. I understand. You are ignorant. So shut up, listen, get on board, or go to hell. That is my view. That is my context. And I am not going to pretend as if everybody else has intellectual value to offer me. Oh yeah, let me really listen so I understand where you're coming from. First of all, they're playing on this. They're equivocating there. When they say you have to act like you have something to learn from somebody, they're playing on this conflation between learning where they're coming from and where they went wrong versus learning something that's actually true. You know, there are times when it's valuable to learn how somebody else went wrong. But even then, many times, you don't have anything to learn from somebody else. Many times, no, I understand where you're coming from better than you do. So you shut up. I'll explain your ideas to you better than you could to me, and then I will explain what's wrong with them, and then explain my ideas. No, you don't have something to learn from everyone. And acting as if you do is just abject appeasement.
It was a movement that would die. The way the world changes is not through litmus tests of who's an objectivist and who's not. It's through the slow injection of good and better ideas into the culture, and people becoming better over time. I mean, that's how the world will change.
Yep. Just live your life, enjoy it, and have confidence that if all of these ideas are given a fair hearing, that the right ideas will win out. And, you know, we have to, how can we get better at expressing and arguing for our ideas except for debating some of the smartest people who disagree?
Yeah.
Do you think Jordan Peterson is, well, he may be one of the smartest people who disagree, although that's pretty pathetic. And if that's the case, I would just go back to books from smarter people who disagree, like Kant. Jordan Peterson is a man who believes that Jesus Christ may have actually risen from the dead because we don't know the results of being perfectly moral. Now, I just want to point out that this was literally a joke on Leonard Peikoff's podcast at one point. Somebody wrote in a question about, well, if life is the standard of value, then, or is the, you know, if morality is based on taking actions to sustain your own life, then why isn't somebody who's perfectly moral, why doesn't that person live forever? Now, Jordan Peterson is saying something very close to this. He's saying, oh, well, look, we don't know what happens if you're perfectly moral. Maybe if you're perfectly moral, you can come back to life. That's, if you don't believe that that's what he said, that's what he said. People have asked him, what's your view on the resurrection? And he responds, look, all I can say is, because he never wants to admit too openly the ludicrous consequences of his beliefs. But he says, look, all I can say is we don't know what happens if you're a 100% perfect moral being. Now, you tell me what you're supposed to take from that. I mean, there is no, that is the objective implication. That maybe Jesus was perfectly moral and that's how he came back to life. I've also heard Jordan Peterson say that, maybe primitives ingested some forms of drug and introspected the double helix structure of DNA. And that's why it is present in, what is it, Watson and Crick? Pre-Watson and Crick art. I mean, that's really bad. That's really bad. Do you think anybody very intelligent could believe something like that in modern times? I mean, you can forgive Newton for alchemy. That's a much more primitive context, but I mean, I'm simply unwilling to accept the idea that somebody who believes in that kind of outright mysticism is one of our smartest opponents. If he is, then we have to stop dealing with our opponents. They're useless, and we should just present our ideas straightforwardly, as Ayn Rand did. Ayn Rand didn't go around talking to everybody. She presented her ideas. Here are my ideas. And she would comment on other ideas, but she didn't have to go talk to these people. She would just discuss them on her own terms. You know, you could talk about Jordan Peterson at OCON, give a lecture at OCON about everything that's wrong and evil, wrong with and evil about Jordan Peterson. You don't have to invite him there to a panel discussion to do it. That's actually way less practical, and it's based on this premise, oh, we have something to learn from him. If you still have something to learn from Jordan Peterson, you are not an objectivist. There is no way in hell it will be more clarifying to an audience to hear Yaron discuss ideas with Jordan Peterson than to hear Yaron simply give a presentation about what's wrong with Jordan Peterson. Then you won't have Jordan Peterson mucking it up while you're trying to explain it. Because you, as an objectivist, should know Jordan Peterson's ideas better than he does. But of course, this isn't about educating the audience. This is about advertisement. That's what this is. Okay, but if that's what we're going to turn OCON into, OCON is now not actually a place for objectivists to come and to get objectivist content. It's now just another means of broadcasting objectivism to other audiences. If that's the case, then I, as an objectivist, am not going to go to OCON. I mean, I already wasn't going to, but if I were the type who was still going to, why would I go? Now OCON is just another way to advertise objectivism to non-objectivists? Well, I am an objectivist. That's why I come to OCON, so what the hell am I doing here?
So,
I mean, the worst case scenario will be that we do this and Jordan Peterson is so unagreeable or so pedantic or so whatever, wants to talk about something that's irrelevant to what we want to talk about, that it's all a waste of time. That is
but then why would he come? I don't see why.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what's the worst case? If you don't take risks in life, you know.
When is the Harris thing again? You said he was talking to Harris?
Harris is tonight and tomorrow night, but I don't think
so let's watch. Oh, it's not going to be live streamed.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You know, Dave Rubin, I talked to Dave Rubin yesterday, and he said he was flying up to Seattle to watch one of them because I think it's not live stream. So,
anyway, we might get a sense of how he is in that sort of environment from how that goes. That's all.
Yeah, I want to he was very nervous about it, and Sam Harris was very nervous because when Sam Harris was on Dave Rubin's show a week ago, they talked about the upcoming debate, and you could tell Sam was stressing about the debate. So
there's a lot there with Peterson to process and talk about.
So you know, who knows?
Anyway, congratulations! I'm really looking forward to this, and
it should be fun. I'm still trying to figure out how OCON and I are going to work on it together and how to do it. My guess is, you know, we'll see how that works out. And Dave's role, I'm talking to Dave about it, what his role is going to be. So how it all works out and how we make sure we cover the kind of issues I want to cover, which are the more philosophical issues, and stay away from things that neither OCON and I are expert at, which are
psychology. Right.
We'd like to stay away from psychology, try to stay away from evolutionary psychology.
Dave's role is exactly what his role was when you invited him to OCON before. Here's another non-popular non-objectivist to get more non-objectivists to pay attention to this objectivist conference. You want to do stuff with Dave Rubin outside of OCON? Fine. Why the hell are we turning OCON into everything but objectivism?
Because I don't even want to critique it because it's too hard. It's too outside of our fields. And
he's talking about evolutionary psychology here. It's too hard to critique. Okay.
Try to really focus in on philosophy, on philosophical issues. So, but it's, to me, it's the idea of not having a dialogue, the idea of objectivism. I mean, objectivism has to be pure, but objectivism, nothing happens to purity of objectivism by inviting somebody to debate at an objectivist conference. We've had people speak at objectivist conferences who are not objectivists, who are libertarians, or with a small L, or free market economists, or for decades we've had free market economists who are not objectivists speak, not debate, actually have the main stage at objectivist conferences. It doesn't dilute objectivism, having people who disagree with you, and particularly if you can say.
This is, again, totally disingenuous. Inviting Peter Schiff to speak at OCON is nothing like inviting Jordan Peterson. Peter Schiff is a pro-capitalist expert on economics and finance. In the area on which he spoke, he was in agreement with objectivists and an expert with something to say. Now, I mean, if you could have an objectivist rather than him, that would be better, but fine, there aren't that many objectivists. But it is entirely different to have Peter Schiff and Jordan Peterson, somebody with whom you disagree 100% on everything of importance. That is, I mean, this is just disingenuous.
I disagree with them. So anyway, that's where we are.
It all comes down, years ago, I was an intern for Judge Kaczynski, Alex Kaczynski. He's now he retired and everything. But I remember asking Leonard, I'm going to go and I'm work for this guy, and he's a little L libertarian, and of course we don't agree on everything. And Leonard said something very important, which was, the premise of you working for a judge is not that you agree on every single thing. But again, there is no human being in the world that you agree with every single thing on. So what, are you not going to interact with?
Yeah, but the premise of inviting somebody to a panel discussion at your once-a-year big event for people who agree with your ideology is that the people on that panel do fundamentally agree with your ideology. So this is just more dishonesty, disingenuousness, straw manning.
People in general, and we are more than just our philosophy too, right? I mean, our philosophy is a huge component for those of us who take objectivism seriously. We don't want to fail to have integrity with respect to who we are and what we believe in, but there is no person in the world that you agree about every single thing.
Oh, so then let's just talk to anybody, right? You don't agree with everybody. There's nobody you agree with 100%, so you can now talk to everyone, no matter what percentage you have in common. That's the utterly fallacious BS Amy is spewing here. This is... Why am I even commenting on this? You don't need me to comment on this to understand how dishonest this is.
But the issue is the issue of sanction and sanction of evil.
Yeah.
Again, Yaron being better and noticing what he at least has to pretend to care about.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're sanctioning evil by inviting Peterson. We convened the Intellectual Oversight Committee of the Board of Directors that includes Harry Binswanger and Tara Smith and Robert Mayhew, myself and Ankar, and we all discussed inviting Jordan Peterson. The conclusion was that it was not sanction of evil, and that this was something that would benefit the movement, and that the downside were very small, and that we're going to have a discussion, and while being explicit on the fact that we disagree. And that included Harry, who is scathing about Jordan Peterson,
Sure.
and supported that position.
Yeah, I think that's a big mistake. I don't know how you call somebody a Nazi fascist philosopher and then endorse inviting him to a panel discussion to your big yearly event meant for people who agree with your philosophy. But I think Peikoff and Harry Binswanger are mistaken to endorse ARI in general. Peikoff was initially skeptical of creating ARI back in 1985. He thought it would just be another useless bureaucracy, but he went along with it and eventually came around on it. I think he was right the first time. ARI has been worse than useless. It is turning objectivism into applesauce. It is beating it into just a mush to get rid of all the hard bits so it can be consumed by anybody. It can just be this amorphous, meaningless mush, consumable by anyone. That's been ARI's fundamental goal. at least in more recent years. I'm not an expert on its history, but since I've been paying attention, it's been getting more and more like this, although maybe some of that's just me noticing it more and more. But yeah, it's too bad Leonard Peikoff and Harry Binswanger endorse ARI, and you know, I think ARI will become much worse once Peikoff dies. I think the only reason they are not totally off the rails now is because they are afraid of being denounced by Ayn Rand's intellectual heir. Peikoff has an authority that they fear, but once there is no authority around anymore, ARI is going to get much worse because they won't fear anything. I mean, if they're the kind of things they're doing now would have been unacceptable in the 90s, two 90s Peikoff. But I don't know if he just doesn't pay that much attention anymore or what. In any case, things are pretty bad. And this was a horrible decision. That is just one more consistent step in ARI's goal of turning objectivism into nothing, into making it just indistinguishable from any other mainstream big tent ideology, and thereby guaranteeing that nobody who really cares about ideas will ever give it a second glance.
All right, great. I think we've gone an hour.
All right, I guess that's it. I think that's all I had to say. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So look forward to a new podcast on Monday, as always, and I will do more videos as I see more videos worth commenting on. So bye for now.